Welcome to another episode of the Charlotte Mason Philippines, where we talk about our day to day ponderings and applications of Miss Charlotte Mason's method. Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Roldan of Our Living Learning.
And I'm Normie Herrera of CM Pinay Book Club. Grab your coffee or tea, take a break, and join our conversation.
He must live hours daily in the open air and as far as possible in the country. Must look and touch and listen. Must be quick to note consciously every peculiarity of habit or structure in beast, bird, or insect, the manner of growth and fructification of every plant. He must be accustomed to ask why. Why does the wind blow? Why does the river flow? Why is a leaf bud sticky? And do not hurry to answer his questions for him. Let him think his difficulties out so far as his small experience will carry him.
Wow, so beautiful. I love,
Galing.
Sobra, I love the part when it says, asking why. Why does the
Mhm.
wind blow? These things are probably the natural questions that the child would ask if he's always consistently being outdoors. So,
Mhm.
welcome everyone. I think today we are going to talk more about nature. 'Di ba last time, Normie, we talked about outdoors, no? So,
Mhm.
for this session, I think we will look into deeper kung how do we actually do nature study probably, or maybe what are the benefits of doing nature study. But first, this whole series is we were supposed to like tackle practices that's unique to the Charlotte Mason method. Nature study is not as unique. In fact, a lot
Mhm.
of methods use nature study, no, but maybe normally we can emphasize how different it is maybe.
Mhm.
So far for you, what makes nature study maybe different, or what are the practices in this method na sa tingin mo na iba?
Well, for one, sa akin talaga, what I see that's different with the approach of Miss Mason is yung the observation, how they are trained to see and alam mo yun, observe the changing things in everything around them. And because of that, it creates that, ayun, sinasabi doon sa quote na yun, the why. Bakit nga, di ba? And we all know children, they begin with all these why questions. And if you just bring them in an atmosphere like that, or in an avenue where they can really just explore all those why questions, that will really become already a learning area for them. And kahit ako personally, it's also something that has rekindled parang my love of nature. Dati, I just love nature per se. Talagang, wow, I love being in nature. Di ba ganyan tayo eh. And what I appreciate when I started doing the nature study with the Charlotte Mason method is that there are far more things pa pala to discover that I didn't really realize. We're just waiting there, diba? And only when my children began to observe and alam mo yon, parang, Mommy, look at this. Why is it like that? Doon pa lang ako, oo nga, no, bakit nga? Why is it like that? So that's one thing that I have learned and I have seen in the method of Miss Mason. How about you, Gina? Kamusta
Yeah.
naman yung how you did it? Or how did you
Yeah.
discover the nature study?
Yes, definitely. I think one of the key things about the Charlotte Mason in terms of nature study is the habit of observation, habit of attention. And I'm not so sure about other methods. No, I don't know how they do nature study. So I can only speak about the Charlotte Mason method.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
when I began my journey, to be honest, I wasn't such a nature lover. Hindi ako katulad mo, Normie. So to begin with, kasi I was not exposed to the beauty. Parang parating mami ko, parang naku, mapapawisan ka. Alam mo yun, typical na bawal maglaro sa labas. And so when I first, discovered this and read it, at first, I couldn't understand it, to be honest. Hindi ko naintindihan kung bakit importante ang nature study. But I tried it out. I still have my first nature study journal entry. And this was during when my children were still so young, and I still have it. I should post that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
time that I sat and actually observed. And when I
Mm.
did that, and actually looked at the tree and looked at it, the details and everything, I felt already that it had a big effect talaga on
Mm.
someone, it had a big effect on me. And yun, dun ako nag-start. And so, yun yung start ng journey ko. So, yes, it really is tied in with observation. And ang galing nito is if you look at all the practices of Charlotte Mason, there's always the habit of attention in place. And for the younger kids, I think this is a great and natural opportunity to start their habit of attention. So I think that's what makes it different for Charlotte
Yeah.
Mason in terms of nature study. Ano pa bang masasabi mo about it na based on your experience, nakakaiba ang pag-practice nito?
Well, what I appreciate also kay Charlotte Mason, when she talks about nature study, it's not just for science per se. Kasi like she also mentioned particularly in one of her volumes, if I may just read, no, I just love it kasi sabi niya dito, we are doing something, we are trying to open the book of nature to children by the proper key. Knowledge, acquaintance by look and name, if not more, with bird and flower and tree. We see to that the magic of poetry makes knowledge vital, and children and grown-ups quote a verse which shall add blackness to the ash bud, tender wonder to that flower in the crannied wall, and thrill to the song of the lark. So, by that, ibig sabihin, Charlotte Mason is saying, it enriches all the other areas of a child's learning. Kasi, oo nga naman, if the child is really very much poetic, for example, the child can gain more insights, how he can describe how he feels just by using the things that he has observed in nature. Diba? So, hindi lang siya science. Mag-nature study tayo kasi science lesson to. But it's more than that. So, that's what I love about it also na ako rin personally ngayon, when I read some of the literature that mentions a statement about nature, ngayon hindi ka na parang, so anong ibig sabihin? Anong feeling nun? Diba? Nako-connect mo na siya ngayon na parang, yun pala yung ibig sabihin, yung a thrill to the song of the lark. Kasi now, we've been observing that birds pala have different song calls or bird calls. Yun pala ibig sabihin nun. And that becomes, alam mo yun, parang that wonder of learning for my child. And also for me. Actually, for me talaga. Talagang natutuwa ako.
Yes, and like you said, it's not limited to the parang technical things of science or studies in general. It is beyond it. And in my experience, and I'm sure you agree, and a lot of the Charlotte Mason families agree with me, is that this opportunity for us to open our eyes to the beauty, which sometimes we forget, which sometimes we take for granted because it's just there, it's free, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
If not for Charlotte Mason, my eyes would not be opened to the beauty. And for me, what a gift it is to give to our children that, they will always have nature to go to. When
Right,
they're sad,
yes.
when they're
I
happy,
love that. Yeah.
when they're
Oo.
tired. Can you imagine? Kasi ngayon, ang dalas, pag restless ka, pag tired ka, manood ka na lang ng TV o kaya mag-Netflix, But I feel that the option na nag-grow ng love for nature for our children, may option silang pumunta doon. And mind you, it truly does give rest.
True.
'Di ba? Because gawa ni God eh.
Totoo.
And
Ang ganda nun, highlighted that. Kasi dahil nga we live in a modern age,
yes.
parang our immediate default when we feel restless or we want to take a break is to go to our gadgets or alam mo yon, to just rest and slump in the bed, ganyan. But nakakalimutan natin na the nature actually refreshes
Yes.
and heals you, if I may say that. Kasi there are many things na you begin to discover. And ito, when we say nature study, it's not just basically just going to the mountains, alam mo yon, na parang really outdoors, but the nature itself in your immediate environment. So kahit pa sa labas lang yan ng garden mo, or even the nature inside your home, kung meron ka mga plants inside your home, or alam mo yon, things like that, that you can begin to connect with again. Yun yung nakakatuwa na nakalimutan ng mga tao na may nature that you can always go to.
Exactly.
Diba?
'Di ba nung unang panahon, 'di ba, let's take a walk. You know, ngayon hindi eh. And so that's one thing that parang binigay sa akin yung gift na yon, and for my
Mm,
journey, na binuksan yung
mm,
mata natin. And maybe some of the families here are thinking, how do they start, no? Parang, should they start this way or that way? Ano sa tingin mo?
mm,
What are certain practical things that maybe they can do? So first, alam na natin that it is beyond science, curriculum, or even a
mm.
lesson. Parang wala kang objective. It's just really being
Yeah.
it. There's nature
Mm,
has a lot to offer. And I hope that perspective somehow helps you see that hindi mo kailangan ikahon ang nature stuff.
yeah, that's
Na
right.
hindi kailangan na tingnan na there is only one way to go about it. No? Maybe one thing, ako number one thing always from to a family that maybe doesn't know what to do, I just say go out, enjoy out the outdoors, and just look at it, observe it, and slowly let it speak to you, parang ganon. And
Mhm.
so,
Yeah.
yun ang number one. And I'm sure you would say that too. Any other practical things? Now, ngayon at nasa labas na sila, Normie.
Yes,
Maybe
yan.
sanay na sila, and what are other steps na practices that maybe you can share to them na ginagawa nyo din? Parang to
Well,
make it more
yeah.
structure for them.
Oh, one of the things that we do is to do the nature journaling. Kasi yung mga anak ko, mahilig sila sa mag-drawing, ganyan. And also when they go outdoors, because they have all these questions and why. And sometimes I cannot answer it immediately. So I would always tell them, write it down in your notebook. You write all your questions, how it looks like and all that. Then let's revisit. Come back again tomorrow if it still looks the same or ganyan. So that becomes now a record. Yung sarili na nilang record na, ganito pala ang itsura ng plant kapag kabagong sibol, tapos eventually pagka ganitong oras ng panahon or ng araw, ganito siya, itsura niya. And nakakatuwa kasi like very recently lang yung nature study namin, we're observing our bamboo plants. So parang sabi niya, Mommy, why is our bamboo drying up? So ko, I don't know, maybe there's no water, but daddy already, ganyan pa siya, but daddy already watered it, but why is it still drying up? So, that's a good question. So ngayon, sinusulat nila, but that was siguro a few weeks back. Tapos ngayon napapansin nila, may mga bagong usbong na green. Mommy, it's still alive pa pala. So ngayon, those discoveries actually excites them kasi when they look back in their notebooks, parang, akala ko patay na siya, Mommy. Buhay pa pala siya. So now they see that, there are changes with the season pala. So whatever it is that they glean from that, that's a learning that they can own. Na hindi ko itinuro sa kanila na anak, pagka drying season, ganito, o fall season, kasi ganyan. Sila na di-discover nila just by merely observing. And having a nature journal or just a simple notebook that they can write on is already something that can jumpstart yung kanilang nature study. Yun. So that's one thing. How about you? Anything else you would like to also share that you're doing?
Yeah, so you
family.
mentioned we've been talking about observation. No, the
Mhm.
children just observe and then they question and then they just document things. So that's one thing, families who are listening. That's what you can do, and it's so practical. And you'd think na wala kayong makikita. Pero
Yeah.
may makikita at may makikita.
Kala nyo lang wala, pero
Kala lang
meron.
wala. Oo.
Meron.
And gusto ko lang
Oo.
dugtungan yun. Gusto ko lang
Yeah.
dugtungan yung story mo na yun, na yung anak mo at first, questioned why the bamboo is dry, and then all of a sudden meron ng lumalabas na mga dahon-dahon or what. It's just, and the discovery of that child, him seeing it for himself, it's a scientific mind already
Yes.
strengthened. It's
Mm.
that curiosity that, there is a cause and an effect. It's that, and like what you said, there are steps. And you know what? I think why I love nature studies so much, and I'm so happy that I had an opportunity spending much time with when they were young, my children outdoors, is that I feel that the experience made them fall in love with discovery. Made
Yes.
them see that the little things have an effect, And right now, because I have older kids, I can see the effect whenever they do experiments. The real experiments sa bahay.
Yeah, yeah.
The effect when they're reading a science text. So, wala lang. Yun lang ang
Saya, no?
But anyway, another practical thing is that ang pwede nyo pong gawin sa bahay is pwede kayong gumawa, meron kayong notebook. I used to do this. May calendar kayo. It's called a perpetual calendar, and you could have it as a family. This is good for
Mm,
families with younger kids pa. You
yeah.
could just plot things. Kunwari, when you say perpetual calendar, yun yung mga walang exact dates. Nakalagay lang January, and then blank lang yung numbers, pero may Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, ganon. So, may 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, hanggang 31 ng January, but it won't specify which day it is. And so, the idea is, every time you go out, let's say it's July 5, and then you see something outdoors, and your younger ones don't have the ability yet to maybe draw in their nature journal, you could observe together as a family, and then you could plot it, you could draw something in that specific date, and then sooner or later napupuno yon yung perpetual calendar na
Mm,
yon, at nakikita niyo yung changes at parang
yes.
it's a family experience now. So that's one practical thing that you can also implement as you go outdoors. So, but ang dami-dami pa pong pwedeng gawin now, but the number one thing that's important is you don't have to have the right materials. Hindi kailangan perfect ang notebook.
Yes.
Kasi minsan mga iba, nasa-stress sila na hindi pa perfect notebook nila or hindi pa perfect ang materials nila. Ang pinaka-importante is just go out. Go out.
Yeah, and appreciate nature. That's basically what the nature study is. Parang trying to really instill in all of us. Yung you go out there and just appreciate everything that you're seeing. Not because you're just taking in some of the good, but because you're seeing also the beauty of everything relating to each other, na parang may ganitong transformation na nagaganap and things like that. And what's also nice about nature study, di ba, Gina? Hindi lang siya outdoors eh. Di ba? You can also do nature study indoors. Like, kasi yung iba sinasabi ng mga families na, kasi wala kaming ganyang environment near us, or we don't have that liberty to go out. But ngayon, di ba, pwede na ngayon lumabas yung mga families. We always remind them na, alam mo, may mga living things sa loob ng bahay niyo. May butike.
Oh my
May
gosh.
mga halaman kayo sa loob ng bahay. Alam mo yun, that's something that your children will be sobrang excited to discover din. Parang, bakit dumadaming butiki sa gabi?
Pero alam mo,
Parang yun pa lang, di ba? That's already discovery.
kailangan ko lang ipasok to regarding butike. There was a time that my son, would be so fascinated with butikes that he would really touch them. And I'm not kidding. Nandito siya ngayon, tumatawa siya. Kwento ko to. There were times na yung buntot nagse-separate, tas talagang But anyway, nature it's everywhere. And so the gift that we give to our children is, I think, helping them open their eyes to what's out there, to the natural things, and not just limit them to the obvious things like the TV.
Yeah.
So it will be a tough thing, but I think if you persevere in this habit of going to nature, it will definitely benefit your children, but not only your child, you as well as a parent. Okay, so you mentioned na pag nasa city, mahirap, mga naka-condo, hirap mag-nature study, pero pwede naman sila gumawa ng maliit na plot ng mga plants, no? Ano kaya pang pwedeng gawin ng mga families natin?
Well, right now, some of the families that we have sa Charlotte Mason community, diba, they get this parang yung mga pupa or mga caterpillar, then they observe that, how they transform. Tapos meron pa akong isang family, they bought this mushroom sack, and then they observe how it grows. And you can actually, like what you said, plot these things in the home and just observe it. Like, natatawa tuloy ako dun sa sinabi mo, Butike. If by any chance nakahuli yung anak niyo ng butike, ng bag, whatever, you put it in a jar.
Yes.
Pero syempre, pahingahin naman natin sila dahil living thing naman sila. And what I appreciate also pala about Charlotte Mason, because of nature study, it also gives the child that value regarding life. Parang meron silang regard for life. Hindi sila basta-bastang aapak ng ipis. Alam mo, ganun yung nangyari sa akin. Sa sobrang love ng anak ko sa nature, nagalit siya sa lola niya nung minsang nilinis niya yung mga ants. Yung isang linya ng ants na gano'n. Sabi ko, anak, kasi kailangan natin silang alisin dahil uubusin nila ang pagkain. But that's something that I find so adorable with children kasi they now understand the value of a living thing. Hindi lang siya bastang, ay ano lang siya, mamamatay lang siya dyan afterwards. Pero they really appreciate and value them. So yun, you can actually do that in your home, diba? And just observe and what do they eat, how do they behave in a certain atmosphere, mga ganyan. And that's something that they can already do, whether they are in the rural area or nasa city man sila, di ba?
Yes, and as a last tip, maybe a practical tip that you can do that we've done as a family is that in our previous home, we had santol tree in front of our house. And so we observed that tree year round and saw the small changes, and it is so fascinating na alam namin na pag nagbabuds na siya, tas ayan na, parating na ang santol, and then there are particular months in a year na dumadami ang caterpillar around that area. And so, ayan, ang dami ng higad na umaakyat sa puno. So, all these things na nakita naturally ng mga anak ko. And that was just one tree. And yet, my children
Dami,
saw
oo.
so much
Mhm.
because of that one tree. So, adopt a tree, choose a tree around you in your neighborhood, and just observe it year round. And
Yes.
you will see the changes of the leaves, the trunk, and all these things. So, yun po, mga maraming practical things. And that's about it. Anything else? Any other last words?
Yeah. Siguro for encouragement to the families, you don't really need to like, so ano to, another subject ba to that we need to study? Or is it something that I need to add na naman sa homeschool namin? Actually, this may be part of your science lesson. Pwede. But again, sa akin, I always find nature study as part of the enrichment of my child na parang it's something na will really just continue to pick his interest in observing and developing his habit for attention, like what you've been mentioning din kanina. So, yun lang. And whatever it is that we may take from that na applicable din sa science lesson namin, then win-win. Kasi parang it's hitting two birds with one stone, di ba? And that's one of the things na I hope will also enrich your families by incorporating the nature study in your homeschool.
That's true. And with that, may I just read this quote from Charlotte Mason? It says here, "But beauty is everywhere, in white clouds against the blue, in the gray bowl of the beech, the play of a kitten, the lovely flight and beautiful coloring of birds, in the hills and the valleys and the streams, in the windflower and the blossom of the broom. What we call nature is all beauty and delight. And the person who watches nature closely and knows her well, like the poet Wordsworth, for example, has his beauty sense always active and always bringing him joy." And yes, that quote speaks so much, and nakaka-relate talaga ako sa kanya. And I know Normie does too. And so that's it. Any last words, Normie?
Well, for last words, no, again, nature study actually gives us that, yung lens ba, of appreciating what God has created. Nagkakaroon tayo ng greater reverence for the Lord for what He has done, for being the creator of all these things. And my child, I just remember he mentioned, why did God made flowers with many colors? Sabi ko, why do you think? Kasi whenever we have these conversations, I don't immediately answer his question. I always return the question to him. And I was so amazed by how he was able to share his insights in his young mind. Sabi niya, because it's more beautiful when there are lots of colors. So parang ako, wow, that's basically it. And we thank God for bringing colorful flowers to our environment, making it more beautiful. Like what you mentioned, ang ganda lang. So I just hope no and pray that every family will get to experience this in their learning, in their homeschooling. So there, I hope this has encouraged you, our topic for this episode. Gina?
Yeah, thank you again for listening in, and we will have more Charlotte Mason conversation. So please subscribe to Charlotte Mason Philippines podcast. So that's it. Thank you, Normie, for another good conversation, and I will see you again next week. Okay?
Yes.
Sige.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
Normie. Bye. Thank you for joining Charlotte Mason Philippines. Again, we are a community podcast, and we hope that this episode helped, encouraged, and inspired you today.
And there will be more conversations, so please subscribe to our podcast channels and join our Facebook group, Charlotte Mason Philippines.